He fixed the coffee machine in the corner of the buzzing office, and in that moment, everything changed. Ethan had always been the quiet type. He preferred the comforting hum of machines over the noise of conversations. But today, he felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. The aroma of fresh coffee filled the air, promising energy and warmth. Around him, the office was alive with typical morning chatter. People joked, they scrolled through their phones, and they hurried by with cups in hand. But there was one person who caught Ethan's attention, a bright light in the daily office grind. Her name was Clara. She had long, wavy hair and a laugh that could light up the grayest of days. Every time she walked by, it felt like a soft breeze passing through the room. Clara often stopped by the coffee machine for her morning fix, and she had made a habit of chatting with Ethan. Today, though, her usual smile felt heavy with something else. As she stepped up to the freshly brewed pot, she glanced at Ethan. Her green eyes sparkled with curiosity. "That's impressive, Ethan. You really fixed it," she said, her voice bright against the background noise. Ethan shrugged, trying to hide the blush creeping up his cheeks. "It just needed a little love," he replied, forcing a smile. Clara poured herself a cup, the steam swirling up into the air, fading into the chaos around them. She took a sip and smiled wider. "It tastes great." Ethan chuckled softly, the tension in his shoulders easing. But then Clara's expression changed and the atmosphere shifted. "Listen, Ethan, I'd like to talk to you about something. Can we meet later?" A million thoughts collided in his mind. He asked, his heart racing. She bit her lip, hesitant yet hopeful. "I want to share some ideas for the new project, but it's more than that." His breath caught in his throat. The office had only seen blurred lines between colleagues, but today felt different. There was electricity in the air, a connection, and although doubt pushed at the edges of Ethan's mind, curiosity pulled him closer. "Okay," he managed to say. Clara gave him a quick smile, and her eyes sparkled with something unspoken before she turned back to her friends. As Ethan sat down to work, thoughts of that meeting took root in his mind. It was hard to concentrate. He tried to immerse himself in the project at hand, but every time he caught a glimpse of Clara, laughter spilled from her lips like precious confetti, and he found himself lost. A few hours later, Clara slipped him a note during a meeting. "Meet me in the break room at 3 p.m., it said, and with a rapid heartbeat, he nodded. As the clock ticked down, every passing minute felt heavier, like sand slipping through an hourglass. Finally, the clock struck 3. He stood, making his way to the break room. It felt strangely surreal, his palms slightly sweaty, anticipation bubbling in his stomach. The break room was quiet, the only sound was the refrigerator's gentle hum. Then he saw her leaning against the counter, arms crossed, a nervous smile teasing the corners of her lips. "You made it," she said, her voice warm and inviting. "Of course," he asked, leaning against the opposite counter, trying to play it cool. Clara took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about our project. I know we're on different teams, but I can't shake the feeling we could create something amazing together." Ethan nodded, impressed. "That sounds great, thank you," she said, her cheeks flushing slightly. He raised an eyebrow, curious. Her gaze dropped for a moment, as if she were weighing her words. "I've seen you work hard." Ethan felt a warmth spread inside him. She stepped closer, her sincerity palpable. "I want you to know you matter." His heart raced. This moment felt heavier than just a conversation about work. It was sprinkled with something deeper, like a secret forming between them. "I appreciate that," he said, looking into her eyes deeply, feeling a connection he had never felt before. Clara blinked, and for a heartbeat, words hung in the air. "I was thinking maybe we could grab dinner." The room felt electric, and time seemed to slow down. Ethan's mind raced, conflicting thoughts scrambling for clarity. Was this just about work? Did she really want to see him outside of the office? "I'd love that," he finally replied, his voice steady despite the fluttering excitement. She exclaimed, her bright smile lighting the room. "Sounds perfect," he nodded, feeling elated, but as Clara stepped back, the light dimmed just a notch. "I need to be honest," she said, her eyes flickering with doubt. A buzz of butterflies erupted in Ethan's stomach, mixed with disbelief and hope surging through his veins. "Really?" "Yeah." Her words hung in the air, settling between them, unburdened and raw. He stammered, caught off guard. Clara smiled, her confidence returning. He scratched the back of his head, a self-conscious gesture. "Ethan, you're kind, smart, and you have this amazing ability to fix things. It's more than just machines, you have something special." Those words wrapped around Ethan like a soft blanket. "Thank you," he breathed, the weight of her honesty lifting him. They talked for a while longer about work, dreams, and everything in between. Their conversation flowed like coffee, rich and warm. Every laugh, every shared thought deepened the connection, intertwining their lives in ways they never imagined. When it was time to go, they walked out of the office together, the sun painting the sky with vibrant hues of orange and pink. Ethan felt the tension ease away with every step, and the world felt lighter, brighter, more full of potential. When they reached the cafe, it was bustling. They found a cozy corner and ordered their drinks. Over steaming cups, Clara filled the air with stories, and Ethan listened, captivated. He found himself sharing pieces of himself he had never dared show before. The cafe's warm light danced off her features, making her look even more radiant. As they shared laughs and stories, something clear and undeniable shifted inside Ethan. He had poured his thoughts, his heart, into creating a connection. Clara did the same, and as they leaned closer, the walls they had built around themselves began to crumble. "Ethan, I'm so glad we did this," Clara said softly, her eyes sparkling in the cafe's light. "Me too," he admitted, vulnerability lacing through his tone. They finished their drinks as the cafe lit up with evening chatter, but their world felt like it was just beginning. Outside, the street lamps flickered to life, illuminating their path with a soft glow. Clara asked as they stepped onto the sidewalk. "I'd like that," he replied, feeling a new sense of freedom. They wandered the streets, their laughter echoing against the buildings. As they walked, Clara turned serious for a moment. "I've watched you work, how you carry yourself, how you care for those around you." Ethan could feel the heat rise in his cheeks again. "Just doing my best," he said, lowering his gaze. "No," she insisted, reaching out to touch his arm. "That's not what I mean. You could do anything, Ethan." He looked at her, the truth in her gaze sending a shiver down his spine. "Yes. The world needs more people who care." The sincerity in her voice struck Ethan in a way he had never experienced before. It wasn't just about the work, it was about him, his essence, and what he could contribute. For the first time, he felt seen, understood, and valued. "Thank you for saying that," he replied, his heart swelling. They continued walking, each step revealing more of who they were, intertwining hopes and dreams under the fading light of the day. The night wrapped around them like a cocoon, sheltering their budding feelings. With each shared secret and whispered dream, the bond between them deepened and the darkness of uncertainty faded, illuminating a future rich with possibility. As they approached their cars, time seemed to stretch. "Ethan," she said softly, her eyes holding his with a knowing gaze, "I really enjoyed tonight." With a final lingering glance, they parted ways, and as Ethan got into his car, a new chapter opened for him, a chapter adorned with potential, laughter, and the beautiful beginnings of something special. The coffee machine might have been fixed, but it was their connection that would brew something deeper, something lasting, a journey not just to work but to the heart. With a soft click, the coffee machine roared to life, awakening the dreary office space in a symphony of bubbling water and the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee. It was a miracle, really, how one small act could change the course of a day or maybe even a life. Ethan stood back, wiping his hands on his jeans, satisfaction blooming in his chest. Just last week, the machine had sat silent and forlorn in the corner, much like he felt most days. An ever-optimistic worker bee in the hive of corporate life, he often felt unseen, lost in the shuffle of endless meetings and emails. But today he had done something tangible, something that mattered. The quiet hum that filled the break room felt like a small victory. As the warm coffee filled the air, its dark aroma wrapped around him, evoking memories of late nights spent studying or early mornings spent dreaming. But it wasn't just the coffee that lifted his spirits. It was the way Clara, the project manager with this magnetic energy, had looked at him just minutes ago. She had stepped in for her usual morning cup, her long hair cascading freely, catching the light, the sparkle in her green eyes captivating him more than a fresh brew ever could. Clara exclaimed, her smile brightening the otherwise dingy office. Ethan shrugged, pretending to downplay his achievement. "It was just a fuse," he said, trying to sound casual. Her laugh filled the room, a melody that seemed to drown out the mundane noise of ringing phones and tapping keyboards. "Well, it's appreciated. Help yourself," he replied, a warmth spreading in his chest at the thought of her enjoying the fruits of his labor. As she poured herself a cup, a wave of courage washed over him. Moments like these were rare, he thought. Just a casual interaction between coworkers, or maybe it could lead to something more. He steeled himself. This was a chance. "Clara, I've been thinking," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "What do you think about collaborating on that new project?" Her eyes widened, the hint of surprise clear on her face. "Oh," she asked, an eagerness lighting up her features. "Definitely, I think we could come up with some great ideas together," he replied, feeling excitement bubble. "Well, I'd love that, Ethan." Clara took her cup and headed toward the door, and just before she stepped outside, she turned back to him. "Actually, can we meet later, like after hours?" Ethan's heart raced. "Sure, let's say," she suggested, a playful smile gracing her lips before she slipped out. The rest of the day passed in a blur, a whirl of meetings and emails, but Clara's words echoed in his mind. The prospect of a meeting with her felt like a promise, a shift in his mundane routine. As the sun dipped low, casting warm golden hues across the sky, anticipation twisted in his stomach. When the clock struck 6, time seemed to bend. He double-checked the meeting room, ensuring everything was in order. Nervously, he smoothed down his shirt and took a deep breath. This was just talk about work, he reminded himself, but a part of him wished for more. Clara arrived a few minutes later, her presence lighting up the room. "Hey, thanks for waiting," she said, her excitement palpable. She had changed into a soft sweater that somehow made her look even more approachable. Ethan replied, trying to suppress the heartbeat that thrummed wildly. They settled into their seats and the conversation began to flow naturally. Clara shared her ideas about the project, her passion lighting a fire in the room. Ethan found himself leaning in, captivated not just by her ideas, but the way she animatedly expressed them, hands gesturing as if painting the future in broad strokes. Yet amidst the chatter about deadlines and deliverables, the air thickened with unspoken words. Clara's laughter was intoxicating, making the minutes fly by, but each passing second stirred an electric connection between them, something real lurking under the surface. "You really know how to handle pressure," she said, a teasing smile on her lips. Ethan felt a blush creep over him. "I just try to stay focused. You make it easier, honestly," he admitted, finding the courage to look her in the eyes. A flash of surprise crossed her face before she smirked. Then the tone shifted, softening like the breeze that rustled the fallen leaves outside. Clara leaned forward and her expression turned serious. His breath caught. This was either a moment for vulnerability or a sudden plunge into awkwardness. He prompted gently. "I've noticed you don't always speak up in meetings," she began, her voice steady. "And it's easy to feel overlooked, especially in a place like this, but I see you." His heart swelled, warmth flooding through him. He wasn't used to this kind of attention, not in a world that often felt harsh and isolating. "Thank you," he managed, surprised by the honesty threading through her words. "This isn't just about work for me," she continued, a slight shyness melting into her tone. "I find myself drawn to you, Ethan." His pulse quickened. Was he hearing her right? He breathed, amazed that this interaction had turned into something so unexpected. She nodded, a serious glimmer in her eye. "I liked you from the moment we worked together on that last project." A mix of shock and joy surged within him. Here was the opportunity he never thought would come along, a chance to explore something deeper with this incredible woman. "I'd like that too," he replied, feeling the weight of his words and the potential of a new beginning. So they melted into their conversation again, this time sharing thoughts beyond deadlines and objectives. Clara shared her dreams of traveling and the places she wanted to see, and Ethan felt drawn in like he was traversing uncharted territory. Each revelation brought them closer, revealing hidden layers of who they were underneath the roles they played daily. Clara talked about her childhood. Her eyes sparkled as she recounted camping trips with her family, laughter spilling from her lips like sunlight. Ethan listened, entranced, fascinated by how vividly she painted her memories in stories that came alive at her fingertips. Days crept into weeks, and the bond between Ethan and Clara blossomed. What started as a simple project collaboration opened up pathways they never would have imagined. Each coffee run seemed to deepen their connection, slipping into conversations that lulled into laughter, embraces that felt warmer than the sun. But with every blissful inch they traveled deeper, shadows lurked just beyond the line of sight. The office, though a backdrop for their budding connection, was also a world of whispers and expectations. Colleagues began to notice Clara spending more time with Ethan, and with it came the eye-rolling and muted laughs. Ethan felt the weight of those gazes every time they slipped into each other's space, and at first he brushed it aside. But insecurities began to creep in. Was he good enough for her? Did she see the same shadows he felt in himself? One afternoon, while they were brainstorming ideas for a presentation, Clara paused, a shadow crossing her face. "Ethan, there's something I want to address," she said quietly, tapping her pencil against the table. He asked, bracing for the worst. She looked down, her brow furrowed. "I don't want it to affect our work or anything." His heart sank at her words, realization washing over him. "Just the usual," she replied with a sigh. Ethan felt frustration bubble inside him. He pressed, trying to meet her gaze. She exclaimed, her eyes flashing, "That's not it at all, but it feels like a complicated web. I don't want you to feel pressured or..." A silence settled between them, heavy and thick. Ethan searched for the words but felt lost. "I contacted you first," he said slowly. "This was something I wanted too." Clara nodded, her expression softening, but doubt lingered. "Let's just keep our heads down for now." But that was the thing about shadows, they often distort and twist reality. Each time they crossed paths in the office, the atmosphere shifted, thickening with expectations and whispers. The days turned into weeks again, and the weight of secrecy, not just from the office but from each other, made Ethan feel heavy. They'd hang out after work, but it felt like they lacked the easy flow of those first magical moments. Then one day, after a particularly taxing meeting where they had both felt the stares, they found themselves in the break room again. This time it was silent, the tension sitting heavy in the air. Ethan leaned against the counter, the coffee machine humming again, but the comfort it once brought felt distant. He asked softly, glancing at her, gauging her mood. Clara sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. "I don't know," she admitted, biting her lip as her fingers nervously twirled her hair. Ethan's heart sank. "Yeah, it's draining. I don't want to lose this connection, Clara." "Maybe we should slow down," she suggested, her eyes betraying a flicker of pain. "Maybe just focus on work for now." The thought twisted inside him, leaving him feeling hollow. "So what we just," she said, the urgency in her voice making him pause. "I'm not saying that." Behind her words he could see the truth. She was scared of judgment, perhaps scared of allowing feelings into a world that thrived in the order of control and decorum. But he couldn't shake the weight unraveling inside him. Then why not address it head on? Clara hesitated, and the moment stretched, hearts pounding, words hung in the air like held breaths, waiting for one of them to take that plunge. "I thought that at least we could explore this outside of the office first." Ethan felt a mix of defeat and understanding, though it stung. "I get that, I do." As the silence returned, uncertainty loomed. The coffee machine buzzed softly in the corner, but the warmth waned. Days turned into an emotional pendulum as both battled their fears. They spent time together after work, keeping their laughter alive, but the shadows grew thicker, the connection frailer under constant strain. Each interaction was a dance with hesitation, talking about dreams, but somehow skirting around addressing their own. Then one evening, while walking home, Clara stopped suddenly. "Ethan, I can't keep doing this," she admitted, her voice cracking slightly. His heart raced. "What do you want, Clara? Because I want this." She looked deep into his eyes, vulnerability etched on her face. "I want to fight for this, Ethan, but I also don't want us to lose our jobs over it." Determination surged within him. "We'll figure it out together. This is worth it to me," he pledged, feeling a sense of clarity. They spent the next few days planning carefully, strategically working side by side while maintaining the fragile boundaries of professionalism. Somehow they managed to embrace the guarded dance of courtship while keeping their colleagues guessing. Rather than being a chain, their shared experience became a secret garden, a slice of joy tucked away from the prying eyes. In the ensuing weeks, they found a rhythm, a way to blend laughter and warmth into the chaos of office life. And through those little moments, sharing lunch, whispered ideas, and stolen glances, their connection deepened. Shadows of judgment and whispering jaws still lingered, but they weathered the storm together, using their bond as an anchor in a tumultuous sea of expectations. And finally, one day, as the golden light spilled through the office windows, Clara took Ethan aside again. She asked, a commanding light flashing in her eyes, "Let's just make it known." Ethan felt his heart light. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps it was better to stand firm in the light than to cower in the shadows. "Let's do it," he replied boldly. That very day, they pulled their colleagues together, and as they stood side by side, exposing the truth of their relationship, the atmosphere in the room transformed. There was shock, certainly, but also acceptance, laughter, and understanding. Ethan felt a weight lift from his shoulders, not just for the truth of their connection, but for the bond they had forged through uncertainty and fear. Love had a way of blooming in the unlikeliest of places, and in that moment, as Clara squeezed his hand, he knew they would face whatever came next together. It wasn't just about fixing a coffee machine anymore. It was about savoring every cup, and every moment there was to share, facing the world not just as co-workers, but as partners ready to embrace the beauty of the unknown together, strength found in unity. The clattering of cups and low hum of chatter filled the bustling office, overshadowing the faint mechanical whir of the coffee machine in the corner, a machine that had been silent for too long. Just then Ethan stepped in, toolkit in hand, determination in his stride. Today was the day he would finally fix it. As he worked, crouched in front of the machine, the scent of stale coffee hung in the air, a pungent reminder of mornings gone wrong. His fingers worked deftly, twisting screws and reconnecting wires. He was never one for grand gestures, but fixing this machine felt like something important, something that could breathe life back into the daily grind of office life. Finally, with a triumphant click, he hit the switch. A moment of silence enveloped the room, followed by the mechanical gurgle as the coffee started brewing. A smile broke across Ethan's face, a spark of pride igniting within. Clara, the project manager with a dazzling smile and radiant energy, was the first to notice. She had been chatting with a few coworkers, but her gaze flickered over to the corner as the coffee machine sputtered alive. "Oh my gosh," she exclaimed, rushing over. Ethan stood up, wiping his hands on his jeans, a bit self-conscious but unable to suppress his grin. "Yep, no more instant coffee for us," he said, his voice a mix of pride and humor. Clara's laugh lit up the room, cutting through the monotonous chatter. "I can't believe I survived last week without decent coffee." "You're a hero," she said, her eyes twinkling as she poured herself a cup. He could hardly look away. Clara always had this effect on him, a magnetic pull that made him feel seen. "It was nothing really," he replied, trying to sound casual, but he could feel the fluttering in his stomach, a sensation he had grown familiar with around her. Just then she took a sip of the coffee and her eyebrows shot up in surprise. "This is amazing. I just figured out the wiring was all messed up." "Sometimes it just takes a little patience," Ethan said, still riding the wave of elation from her praise. Her expression turned serious for a moment, as if contemplating something deeper. "You know, I'd like to talk to you about some ideas for the new project." "Yeah, sure, I'd love to," he stammered, the words rushing out before he could think. The prospect of spending time alone with her sent a thrill racing through him. "Great," she suggested, her voice light as she took another sip. "Sounds good to me," he managed to reply, not fully understanding what just happened, but savoring every moment nonetheless. As the afternoon wore on, Ethan found himself distracted. He glanced at the clock, counting down the minutes until they could meet. Clara had an uncanny ability to light up a room, and today was no different. She moved through the office with ease, her laughter echoing like a beautiful melody. At last, the workday came to an end. He tried to steady his nerves as he approached her. Clara was gathering her things, her hair spilled over her shoulders, and in the dim light of the office, she seemed almost ethereal. She asked, her eyes glimmering with excitement. "Yeah, absolutely," he replied, feeling a warmth spread through him. They stepped into the cool evening air together, the sun setting behind skyscrapers, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. They made their way to a nearby cafe, the busy streets enveloping them in a tapestry of life, sound, and energy. Just moments ago, the walls of the office felt so confining, but now, being beside her felt liberating. As they found a cozy table by the window, Clara leaned in, her voice dropping slightly. "I've been really impressed by your contributions." Ethan felt the heat rise in his cheeks. No one had ever spoken to him like that before. He wanted to show her that he was more than what she saw in the office. "I think we could create something amazing too," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. The conversation flowed easily. They talked about the project, bouncing ideas off each other like a tennis match of creativity. Yet there was something more palpable in the air, an undercurrent of tension that thrummed between them. Something that felt electric, spiraling into something deeper. "You know, I always felt like I had to keep my head down, do my work, and not draw too much attention," she said, her tone shifting slightly. "But working with you, it's different. I feel more." "Same here. I felt more inspired lately," Ethan admitted, his heart racing. Clara's sincerity cut through the noise of everyday office life. She looked right into him, and he felt exposed yet relieved. She smiled softly, and for a moment they just sat there, the world swirling around them while they shared a bubble of connection that felt both exhilarating and frightening. "There's something special about being true to ourselves," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The moment held its breath. Ethan could feel it like an unseen force pulling them closer, the weight of their unspoken feelings lingering in the air. "I want to be true to you too," he said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. She asked, her eyes wide, full of curiosity. Ethan paused, searching for the right words. "I mean, I don't want to just work alongside you. I want to know you, who you are outside of the office, what you dream about, what makes you." Clara's expression shifted, and he could see something like hope flickering in her gaze. "I want that too," she whispered, leaning in closer. Time melted away as they shared stories, dreams, and laughter. They talked about childhood memories, aspirations, and the small joys they found in daily life. As the evening light faded, the cafe lights twinkled like stars outside, echoing the warmth building between them. But then, just as quickly, reality crashed against their bubble, a reminder that life was not just about this mesmerizing connection. Outside the cafe window, he caught sight of a group of their coworkers walking by, laughter ringing out like a haunting echo. The lightheartedness faded as the fears began to seep back in. Clara asked, her expression shifting from joy to concern. Ethan's heart sank. "Does it matter? I'm not sure how I feel about that," she replied, her voice tightening. Ethan felt frustration welling inside him. Their connection had blossomed, yet here it was, tangled in the potential complications of office politics. "But masking who we are isn't fair to either of us," he countered. Clara sighed, her eyes darting away for a moment. "I know, but the office is a tricky place." He leaned back, feeling a mixture of disappointment and understanding. Was she really willing to let fear dictate their connection? "I just don't want to hold back what feels real," he said, his voice steadier than he felt inside. "I get it," she replied, a hint of vulnerability creeping into her tone. The conversation waded through a murky mix of caution and longing, feelings both thrilling and terrifying. They ended the evening with a quiet promise to continue exploring their connection, but with shadows cast by uncertainties as tangible as the coffee-scented air around them. Days turned into weeks again, and their encounters were filled with camaraderie and creativity, yet they existed under a veil of half-truths. They shared stolen moments, laughter that spilled out like sunlight, but the weight of unsaid words hung heavy in the office like an unsteady tightrope. Then one afternoon, something shifted. Ethan found Clara in the break room, a cloud of frustration visible on her face. She said, her voice laced with frustration. "Isn't that good?" he replied, unsure of where the conversation was headed. "It would be if they didn't talk about who sits where, who goes with whom," she said, her tone sharp with irritation. Ethan watched her, trying to understand the root of her frustration. "I get it, but maybe we could use this as a chance to be more upfront." Her eyes flashed. "What if it blows up in our faces?" "But it doesn't have to be that way," he pressed gently. Clara paused, absorbing his words. "I know, but every decision feels heavier now," she admitted, the fight in her voice fading. "Then we create our own good," he said softly, stepping closer. Her resolve faltered, and he saw the flicker of vulnerability cross her face. "What if it does get complicated? Then we figure it out together," he insisted, his confidence steady. "I'm not afraid of the complications." Silence enveloped them, a charged moment filled with doubt and possibility. Finally, Clara sighed, her shoulders relaxing. "Okay, let's try." With that, a rush of relief washed over him. He reached for her hand, squeezing it gently, and a smile blossomed on her lips, a promise of what was to come. That evening, they ventured into the team outing with unwavering determination. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement, laughter ringing out as everyone mingled. Ethan and Clara stood side by side, confidence blending with nerves. Gradually, they began to let go, navigating the complexity of their feelings while enjoying the lightness of the evening. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the gathering, they leaned into their truth. It felt liberating, like shedding a heavy coat they'd worn for too long. Laughter bubbled freely between them, and the whispers faded as they carved out their space, comfortable in their own skin. Soon after, Clara stepped away momentarily, and Ethan stood near the drinks table, filling his cup and watching the night unfold around him. That was when he noticed a few colleagues watching them, whispering and snickering. The anxiety bubbled up again, a reminder of the obstacles still lurking. But as Clara returned, radiant and full of life, his heart swelled with admiration. "Hey, let's show them why we're not afraid," he said, determination coursing through him. Clara smiled, the confidence reigniting in her eyes. "All right, let's do this," she said, gathering her breath. The two of them stepped into the crowd, laughter exchanged, confidence building with every moment. Their presence grew more magnetic, breaking the tension lingering in the air like an unsaid challenge. Soon, conversations sparked all around, and what began as whispers transformed into laughter, drawing the attention of curious onlookers. They filled the night with joy, allowing their connection to warm even the coldest skeptics. Together, they turned insecurities into strengths, proving their bond could thrive within the confines of their professional world. The office no longer felt like a daunting fortress. It became a shared landscape where they could navigate challenges with courage. As they locked eyes, Ethan knew that the true test of their bond had just begun. Life wasn't just about fixing coffee machines. It was about facing uncertainties together, showing that vulnerability could lead to extraordinary connections. In the end, it was not just about what they shared, but the spark that ignited when two people dared to embrace the chaos, dancing through life without fear. The coffee machine had been silent for weeks, an unyielding reminder of forgotten mornings. When Ethan stepped into the office that Monday, he felt weighed down by the stale atmosphere, but today would be different. Today, he planned to fix it. Armed with a few tools and a determination he didn't entirely understand, he made his way to the break room. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, illuminating the worn-out tiles and chipped countertops. The coffee machine sat there, what once was a reliable source of energy for the team now reduced to a mechanical husk. With every twist of the screwdriver, he felt a flicker of hope. The machine represented more than a caffeine fix. It was a beacon of camaraderie. It was what brought people together, the laughter before meetings, shared conversations, and more often than not, moments of vulnerability that blossomed over a simple cup of coffee. After several minutes of tinkering, a heartbeat of life emerged. The machine hummed to life. A sigh of relief escaped his lips as he watched the dark liquid flow into the pot. He poured a cup for himself, the steam rising like a promise into the office air. Just as he took his first sip, Clara entered the break room. She was a force of nature, her presence igniting the mundane office with energy. Long hair cascading over her shoulders, with bright eyes that seemed to dance with every thought. She exclaimed, her voice like sunshine breaking through clouds. Ethan managed a smile, the warmth swelling in his chest. "Just needed a little work," he said, trying to sound nonchalant, but pride crept into his voice. "Heroic work, I'd say," Clara teased, pouring herself a cup. She took a sip, and her eyebrows shot up in surprise. "This is great." Then something shifted in her demeanor, the light in her eyes dimming slightly. "Actually, Ethan, I was hoping we could talk about something," she ventured, hesitation creeping into her tone. "Could we have a meeting later?" His heart raced. "A meeting, alone?" "Sure," he replied, trying to keep his enthusiasm in check. "I'd like to discuss the new project. I think we could brainstorm some ideas, but it's also, well, I feel like there's more to talk about," she said, the edge of uncertainty in her voice. "Sounds good." "I'm looking forward to it," he said, his mind spinning with possibilities. As the day stretched on, Ethan found it hard to focus. Every time he glanced Clara's way, she would meet his gaze for just a second before returning to her work, leaving him with a sense of longing and something deeper. He found himself wondering about those unspoken words the more she hinted at. The hours passed agonizingly slow, each tick of the clock amplifying the tension and unease bubbling inside him. What could she want to talk about? Should he prepare for a discussion about the project, or was there a deeper connection simmering beneath the surface? By the time evening rolled around, Ethan's nerves were taut as a drawn bowstring. He met Clara in the small conference room, the walls adorned with faded motivational posters that felt antiquated. She was already there, her legs crossed, fingers tapping lightly on the table. She said, brightening when he entered. "Wouldn't miss it," Ethan replied, settling into a chair opposite her. "So I know we wanted to talk about the project," Clara started, but her voice trailed off as if wrestling with thoughts unspoken. "Yeah," he said, leaning in. "I've had a few ideas for it." She glanced around, then took a deep breath as if trying to gather her thoughts. "Actually, I wanted to start with something personal," she said, her eyes locking onto his, creating a powerful tension in the space between them. Ethan's heart hammered in his chest. "Yes," Clara continued, her voice steadying as she forged ahead. "You're incredible at what you do, and I've always admired that, but I feel like there's this connection between us." His breath caught. Was she really saying what he thought she was saying? "I feel it too," he admitted, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. Clara's lips curved into a tentative smile, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. I didn't want to misread things, but I can't help it. You make me feel alive. I do feel the same, he asserted, emboldened now, but it's complicated. I know, she replied, her gaze faltering for just a moment. Ethan paused, considering her words. The weight of uncertainty gripped him. On one hand, the thought of pursuing something more with Clara sent exhilaration coursing through him, but on the other, the consequences loomed long and heavy. Could they survive the scrutiny of the office? Let's take it slow, he finally suggested. Clara nodded, her features softening. That sounds good, let's not rush anything. As they continued to talk, the conversation flowed, mingling professionalism with personal connection. They shared stories, dreams, and aspirations, reveling in the newfound bond that felt exhilarating yet precarious. Days turned into weeks, and their relationship blossomed behind the veil of office life. The stolen glances, the lingering touches, the laughter shared in hushed tones became their language, a sweet symphony only the two of them understood. Yet with every shared moment, a shadow loomed, darker than the glow of their connection. The whispers began as muted conversations in the hallways, then escalated into pointed looks from colleagues. Ethan could feel the tension crawling under his skin each time their personal lives crossed paths in the glaring light of the office. One afternoon, Clara caught him in the break room. The coffee machine hummed quietly, a reminder of the moments they shared. Ethan could see the change in her demeanor, the weight of something unspoken resting heavily on her shoulders. "Ethan, we need to talk," she said, her voice hesitating. He asked, confusion clouding his thoughts. "I mean, people are noticing us. I've heard whispers," Clara admitted, biting her lip. "I don't want us to be the center of gossip." He felt a pang in his chest. It wasn't just about them anymore. It was about the image they had to uphold, the ghost of office politics that threatened to suffocate what they were trying to build. "I'm not ashamed of you," he said, trying to inject a sense of clarity into the confusion swirling around them. "I don't want to hide either," she replied, her eyes shimmering with a mix of fear and determination. "But what if it backfires? What if we face backlash?" Ethan took a deep breath, his heart racing. "Then we face it together." Clara met his gaze, the weight of the choice resting there, a crossroads that could defy the expectations laid out for them. Okay, their resolve grew stronger, a bond cemented through mutual respect and understanding. The next office gathering brought a mix of excitement and anxiety. Their heartbeats echoed the pulse of the room. They mingled that evening, standing close to each other but careful not to make too big a statement. Ethan watched Clara. She radiated confidence, her laughter slicing through the chatter, her smile infectious. It was intoxicating, but it also came with a challenge. "Look at them," she said quietly, glancing toward a group of coworkers whispering in a corner. "Let them," Ethan replied softly. "We're not here to perform." As the night progressed, Clara turned to him, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "I want to make this more obvious," she said, a grin breaking across her face. He asked, intrigued and cautious at the same time. She suggested, glancing towards the small dance floor where some colleagues had begun to sway to the music. "Not a bad idea," he said, adrenaline surging through him. Hand in hand, they stepped into the limelight, the rhythm sweeping around them as they moved together, feeling the world fade outside their small circle. Laughter filled the air, and the tension in their bodies eased as they swayed to the music, reveling in the connection that felt electric. But as they twirled and laughed, Ethan noticed the eyes on them, the whispers surging again into a cacophony that drowned out the music. Discomfort began to twist his stomach. "Maybe we should tone it down," he suggested, feeling the weight of scrutiny. "No," Clara said, a firmness behind her words. "This is our moment." As they danced, they made eye contact, and all doubts seemed to evaporate. In that moment, they were free, not just co-workers, but partners crafting their own narrative, defying the constraints thrown at them. As they pulled away from the dance floor, Clara caught her breath. "That felt amazing," she beamed, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Right. I didn't think we could be this bold," Ethan admitted, his heart racing not just from the dance, but the undeniable spark igniting between them. But the night took a sharp turn. As they returned to join the rest of the team, the atmosphere shifted, the whispers unsettlingly louder, the stares sharper. Clara's expression faltered as she surveyed the room, her excitement dimming. "Maybe we crossed a line," she murmured, the light fading from her eyes. "Hey, don't let them steal our moment," Ethan said, trying to reassure her. "I know, but people think differently. This could come back to haunt us," Clara replied, anxiety creeping across her face like a dark cloud. "Let it come," he urged, determination stirring within him. "We'll deal with whatever comes." As the night drew to a close, their excitement mingled with trepidation. What had been a revelation now turned into a web of uncertainty, but it also felt like a new beginning, something raw and real. Days turned into a cycle of excitement and tension, a delicate dance navigating through their relationship amidst the backdrop of office life. They enjoyed stolen moments together, and every shared smile became a reminder of their bond. But one afternoon, the whispers transitioned into something tangible. Ethan overheard two colleagues discussing them, and the stinging words hung in the air. "Did you see them? So obvious, it's embarrassing," one said, laughter in her tone. Ethan's heart sank as he turned away, anger simmering inside him. He wanted to confront them, to shout that their connection was real and deserving of respect, but he hesitated. What if it made things worse? After work, he found Clara waiting in the break room again, her expression strained. "Yeah, let's," he replied, immediately tuning into the tension in her voice. "People are talking, I can feel the eyes on us," she admitted, biting her lip. "I know," he replied, feeling an ache for what she was experiencing. Tears glistened in her eyes. Ethan reached for her hand, their connection sparking. "You're so much more than that, Clara," she pressed, worry clouding her features. "Then we stand up for ourselves. It's not just about work, it's about us. And I'm not willing to lose you over what others think," he said firmly. Clara took a shaky breath, grappling with her thoughts. "I don't want to compromise who we are, but I'm scared," she admitted hoarsely. "Then let's use our fear as fuel. Let's show them that love can exist even in a chaotic world. We can balance it," he said, conviction pouring through. She looked into his eyes, seeking reassurance. "Absolutely. Together we face whatever comes. We deserve this," Ethan declared, his voice unwavering. The resolve deepened, and although the tension never fully dissolved, they learned to navigate the minefield of office life with grace. A fierce determination reinforced their connection, a promise held firm against the weight of expectations. The weeks unfolded, punctuated by the thrill of shared moments and thoughtful conversations that revealed more layers of their bond. They took small steps toward navigating their professional lives together, creating space where they could thrive both as individuals and as a couple. Then came the final test, a corporate retreat that was meant to be a celebration. The buzz filled the air as employees gathered in a larger venue, excitement dancing in the air. But with it came an underlying anxiety, knowing their connection would now face scrutiny from a wider audience. As they arrived, Ethan clenched Clara's hand, feeling the warmth of her palm. The room pulsed with energy, vibrant lighting illuminating a sea of familiar faces. Laughter erupted in waves, but Ethan could sense the tension as others eyed them from afar. "Let's just enjoy the night," he said softly, hoping to banish the shadows. But as the evening unfolded, the critical eyes remained. Clara could feel them watching, and it chipped away at her resolve. Eventually, they found a quieter corner where the music faded into a low hum and they could breathe freely. "I hate this," Clara admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "People just won't stop." Ethan asked gently, bracing himself for the answer he dreaded. "No," she replied quickly, her eyes meeting his with a fierce clarity. "I'd never regret us." "Then let's show them that we can be different," Ethan urged, a spark igniting within him. "We aren't just a pairing, we're a team." Clara's features softened and she took a deep breath, her voice stronger now. "Okay." With a newfound sense of empowerment, they re-entered the fray. This time, holding hands high and shoulders squared, they stepped into the spotlight. As they mingled with colleagues, sharing laughter and eager conversation, it felt liberating, not just for them, but a turning point for their coworkers too. A colleague exclaimed, his voice cheerful. Clara responded, confidence lifting her tone. The atmosphere began to shift as laughter began to ripple through the crowd. Recognition blossomed. They had walked into a challenge and emerged as a couple willing to embrace vulnerability and authenticity. As the night wound to a close, the weight that had once pressed down on their shoulders now lifted into the air, replaced by triumph and joy. Ethan turned to Clara, their connection renewed by shared resilience. "I'm proud of us," he said, beaming. "Me too," she replied, sealing the promise with a gentle squeeze of his hand. In that moment, it became clear they had transformed their fears into a tapestry of strength, navigating everything with grace. Their bond, once tangled in uncertainty, flourished under a new light, one that illuminated everything that was beautifully real between them. As they stepped out into the cool night air, the world around them felt full of possibility. It wasn't just a story about fixing a coffee machine anymore. It had grown into a love that overcame obstacles, a narrative stitched together through moments of courage and trust. Both eager to see where life would lead them next, Ethan and Clara walked forward, side by side, ready to embrace the journey ahead together. The coffee machine sputtered, a troubling silence enveloping the break room like a thick fog. No one in the office had been able to muster the energy to confront it. It sat there, an empty shell of its former self, the lifeline that had once injected warmth and energy into their carefree mornings. Ethan stood before it, a silent hero shrouded in uncertainty, the tantalizing aroma of fresh coffee lost to the void. He leaned down, tools scattered around him like fallen leaves. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed softly, illuminating the worn wood of the table, the dusty tiles, and the sad, lifeless machine. With a deep breath, he twisted a screw and peered into the innards, adrenaline sparking like fire. This might not just be a simple fix. It was a chance to make a mark, to breathe life back into the office. Each turn of the screwdriver felt like a small victory, a step toward restoring a small layer of joy to the daily grind. With every twist, he imagined the moment when the first brew would cascade into the pot, where coworkers would gather once again, laughter echoing through the room. Finally, a satisfying click. He hit the switch, and the machine began to gurgle and hum to life. A wave of relief washed over him, filled with pride. He poured himself a cup, the steam curling into the air, a gentle promise of better days to come. Just as he took that first sip, Clara walked in. She was a storm in a world of quiet, her energy vibrant and captivating. With her long hair swaying, she entered the break room like a ray of sunshine breaking through a dull morning. Clara's voice trailed off as she spotted the coffee machine bubbling and brewing. "You bet it is," Ethan beamed, feeling his cheeks warm under her gaze. "Seriously," she exclaimed, moving closer, her eyes sparkling with excitement. She poured herself a cup, the familiar scent wrapping around them like a warm hug. As she took her first sip, her expression transformed into one of bliss. "This is incredible." Ethan shrugged, playful embarrassment coursing through him. "I just did what I could." Clara leaned against the table, her smile fading into something more serious. "Actually, Ethan, I wanted to talk to you about something else," she said, her voice dropping slightly. He asked, intrigued. "Can we meet later? I have some ideas about the project, but I also feel like there's more we should discuss," she said, her eyes locking onto his. Ethan's heart pounded, a mixture of excitement and apprehension flooding him. "Absolutely," her smile returned, brighter than before. "How about around 6? "Sounds good," he replied, the thrill of anticipation lacing through his veins as she walked away, laughter trailing behind her. As the hours crawled by, Ethan found himself thinking about their meeting. What could Clara want to discuss? Was it just work, or was there something more? Each glance in her direction left a fluttering in his stomach, as if the office had transformed into a theater and the stakes had suddenly skyrocketed. When the clock finally struck 6, Ethan made his way to the conference room, nervously smoothing down his shirt as he entered. Clara was already there, tapping her fingers on the table, her gaze flickering up to meet his. "Hey, thanks for coming," she said, her voice warm as she offered a bright smile. "Of course, I was looking forward to it," he said, settling into a chair across from her. She asked, folding her hands together. Ethan nodded, the familiar pulse of creativity sparking between them as they began to brainstorm ideas. But as they discussed deadlines and deliverables, Clara's eyes kept darting to his, a flicker of something unspoken dancing between them. "Ethan, there's something else I wanted to bring up," she said, her tone shifting to something more serious. His heart raced. "Really?" he asked, the tension of her words coiling into an electric anticipation. "Yeah," she said, her expression softening. "I've enjoyed working with you, but I like who you are outside the office too." A mixture of exhilaration and nervousness swirled inside Ethan. Her eyes widened, surprise dancing across her face. She asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Absolutely," he replied, the honesty propelling him forward. Clara sat back, weighing her thoughts. "I guess I'm scared of how others might react. Office relationships can be tricky." "I get that," he said, his heart sinking slightly, "but I'd rather explore this than hide." A flicker of determination ignited in her eyes. "You're right." They continued to converse, heartbeats synchronizing with every shared thought. Ideas felt lighter, their laughter spilling out like sunlight through a window. Yet beneath the surface, a storm brewed. Friends, colleagues, and rumors ghosted their minds. Over the next few weeks, their relationship blossomed in stolen moments filled with glances and quiet laughter. Each smile shared felt like building bricks against the world outside, but the whispers began to seep into their sanctuary. One afternoon, while Ethan was at his desk, he heard two colleagues chatting nearby, their laughter slicing through the air. "Did you see Clara and Ethan? So obvious." He felt anger rise in his chest, a defiant flame igniting. It wasn't just about his feelings for Clara, it was about the truth they were building together. He wanted to defend her, yet he felt helpless, caught in an invisible web of office politics. That evening, when Clara caught him alone in the break room, he didn't hold back. "I heard people talking about us today," he admitted, frustration spilling from his lips. Her expression shifted, a mixture of worry and understanding washing over her. "I can feel it too, Ethan. It's unsettling," she said, looking down at her coffee cup as though it held the answers. He asked softly. "No," she replied quickly, meeting his gaze with fierce clarity. "I don't want to, but I don't want to risk everything I've worked for here." "Then let's show them," he urged, determination filling his voice. "Let's not let fear win." As Clara considered his words, hope flickered in her expression. "Okay," she said finally, a soft determination settling in her features. With newfound resolve, they took steps towards fostering their bond openly. Each moment turned into an exhilarating dance of excitement and vulnerability. They shared lunches, planned projects, and before long, laughter became their armor against the prying eyes of their colleagues. But just when they thought they had found their rhythm, the corporate retreat loomed, a celebration intended to bring the team together. With excitement came a flurry of anxiety, knowing that their connection would now be scrutinized by a larger crowd. As they arrived at the venue, Ethan felt the tension bubbling beneath the surface. The lights dazzled, music pulsed, and laughter rang out, but an undercurrent of unease settled into his gut. He asked Clara quietly, squeezing her hand. "I'm fine," she said, though her voice lacked its usual brightness. "Let's just enjoy the night together," he reassured, offering a smile. But as the evening progressed, tension thickened around them, whispers rising like smoke in the air. Clara turned her face away from the crowd, a pained expression taking shape. I feel everyone watching us, judging us. It's suffocating, she admitted, her voice cracking. Don't let them take this away from us, Ethan said, the intensity in his voice lifting slightly. Let's own it. As the glimmer of determination returned to her eyes, they stepped further into the fray, a blazing light against the shadows. They danced and laughed together, and for a moment the world outside faded away. But reality came crashing back all too soon. As they re-entered the crowd, the whispers grew louder, the looks sharper. Maybe we should tone it down, Clara suggested, her confidence sliding. No, let's stand tall, Ethan insisted, biting back his own fears. Okay, she replied, her uncertainty palpable. The remainder of the night became a test, a delicate balancing act of love and fear. Each moment felt monumental, like dancing on a tightrope suspended over a great abyss. After the retreat, Clara's apprehension lingered, seeping into their conversations. Maybe we should take a step back, she suggested tentatively one evening, deep in thought. Ethan's heart dropped. What do you mean? No, I just want to protect what we have. It scares me, she said, her voice shimmering with vulnerability. Then let's not hide, let's embrace it, he said firmly, frustration bubbling beneath his calm exterior. Her gaze softened, and after a moment she nodded slowly. You're right. With renewed determination, they took a stand, stepping into their truth with every passing day. They'd face the stairs together, continue their journey of exploration, and transform whispers into applause. As the weeks passed, the tumult of tension and worry began to fade. Clara and Ethan found their rhythm again, laughter becoming a familiar melody that echoed through the office. They felt powerful, united in their defiance, and bringing a new life to their connection. But then came the moment of reckoning, the annual company meeting, designed to showcase accomplishments and growth. As coworkers gathered, excited to celebrate successes, Ethan could feel the pressure mounting. He glanced over at Clara, who was standing at the back of the crowd, hands nervously twisting. He asked, taking a step towards her. With a deep breath, she nodded, but he could see the uncertainty clouding her eyes. She whispered, almost too quietly to hear, "Then we face it together." No hiding, Ethan urged, their bond growing stronger with every word. As the meeting began, the atmosphere buzzed with applause and laughter, but Ethan could sense the tension lurking just beneath the surface still. But as Clara took his hand, a flicker of courage ignited within them. They were stronger together, an unbreakable partnership. When it was their turn to stand and present, they walked up to the stage side by side. As they shared their ideas and visions for the upcoming months, the energy shifted. Laughter flowed and gazes turned more accepting, curiosity shimmering in the air as their authenticity unfolded before the eager crowd. After the presentation wrapped, applause erupted, but Ethan could feel the change in the room. Conversations had shifted. The whispers that previously suffocated them turned into genuine interest, curiosity for their partnership rather than judgment. Later that evening, amid the clinking of glasses and bursts of laughter, Clara turned to Ethan, her heart glowing with gratitude. "We did it," she said, disbelief lacing her tone. He grinned, the warmth of victory radiating through him. In that moment, the noise faded into the background as they shared a private smile, two souls united, no longer hiding but dancing boldly in the light. Their relationship didn't just survive, it thrived. The world that had once felt intimidating now became a canvas where they painted their story anew, vibrant and real. They held on to the lessons learned, every moment written in the chapters of their lives, a love that blossomed not just from a repaired coffee machine but from the strength found in daring to embrace the truth. As they stepped into the future, hand in hand, Ethan and Clara were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. The coffee machine was fixed, but more than that, they had found something far more precious, a bond that neither time nor judgment could break. The coffee machine sputtered ominously, its once reliable hum now reduced to nothing but silence. Ethan stood in the break room, fidgeting with a screwdriver, surrounded by the scattered pieces of a disassembled machine that had been the linchpin of office camaraderie for months. Each day that passed without fresh coffee felt like another nail in the coffin of the team's morale. The air was thick with despair, punctuated only by the sound of keyboards clacking and phones ringing, a dull symphony of corporate life. Today was different. Today, Ethan was determined to change that. He had had enough of the complaints, enough of the groans that echoed through the office hallways. The coffee machine was due for a resurrection, and he was just the man for the job. With each twist and turn of the screwdriver, he felt a flicker of hope. He could almost hear the joyful chatter that would fill the break room once the machine was up and running again. Suddenly, a burst of steam shot from the machine, followed by the distinct gurgle of water heating up. His heart raced. Had he done it? Ethan stepped back, waiting, holding his breath. The machine began to brew, the rich aroma of coffee filling the air like a long-lost friend returning home. With a triumphant smile, he poured himself a cup, savoring the dark liquid that promised warmth and energy. Just then, Clara walked in. She was the electric spark that illuminated the office with her quick wit and infectious laughter. Long hair framed her face perfectly, and her eyes sparkled with curiosity as she caught sight of Ethan nursing a steaming cup. "Smells amazing in here," she asked, walking closer, her excitement palpable. "I did, it was just a wiring issue," he replied, trying to keep his tone casual even as pride bloomed within him. Clara poured herself a cup, taking a tentative sip. Her eyes widened and her smile grew even brighter. "This is fantastic." As they exchanged pleasantries, an idea took root in Ethan's mind. He had admired Clara from afar, hidden under layers of respect and friendship. Today felt like a turning point. Her posture shifted slightly, a flicker of surprise dancing across her features. "That sounds great. How about later this afternoon?" "Absolutely," he suggested, his heart hammering in his chest. "Perfect." "Looking forward to it," she replied, flashing a smile that sent a rush of warmth through Ethan. Hours passed in a whirl of anticipation. A meeting with Clara felt significant, almost monumental, a chance to step into a new chapter of their relationship. With every fleeting moment, the office buzz faded into a soft hum, replaced by the thrilling notion of what awaited him. When 6 o'clock came around, Ethan felt a mix of nerves and excitement bubbling up inside him. He stepped into the conference room where Clara was already waiting, her expression a blend of eagerness and uncertainty. She greeted brightly. "Wouldn't miss it," he replied, settling into a chair across from her. There was something electric in the air, a charged atmosphere that held endless possibilities. "So about the project," Clara began, pulling up her notes, but Ethan could tell she was slightly distracted. Aspirations swirled in her eyes, but an unspoken weight hung between them. After sharing ideas about strategies and deadlines, Clara finally took a deep breath. "Ethan, I've been thinking about something we should discuss," she said, her tone shifting to something more serious. He asked, leaning in, curiosity piqued. "It's about us," she replied, hesitating as if weighing her words carefully. Time seemed to freeze. Ethan's heart raced as the words hung in the air, each syllable heavy with significance. "I do," he admitted, surprised by the clarity in his voice. Her eyes lit up, a mixture of relief and excitement dancing in her gaze. "Really, I didn't want to misread things," Ethan said, a smile breaking across his face. "You're bright, inspiring." Clara's cheeks flushed. "I felt the same way, but you know how complicated office relationships can be," she said, breaking eye contact momentarily like she was searching for a safe haven. "I get that, but isn't it worth exploring? We both deserve to find out where this could go," Ethan pressed, feeling sure. "Absolutely," she agreed, her tone firm, but a flicker of doubt still lingered. "Sounds like a plan," he replied, thrilled at the prospect of taking this leap together. As they continued their conversation, the dynamic shifted, ideas flowed more freely, laughter erupted, and the connection transformed into something boundless. Yet, a lingering anxiety hung in the air like an invisible cloak, a reminder of the office environment that surrounded them. Days turned into weeks, and their relationship became a tapestry woven with stolen moments and glances. They ventured to coffee shops together, shared lunch breaks, and traded whispered jokes between meetings, allowing their connection to unfold gently, like the first light of dawn breaking through the darkness. Yet, as the warmth of their bond deepened, external pressures began to loom larger. Colleagues whispered, glances lingered, and before long the whispers morphed into hushed conversations that buzzed all around them. "I can't believe they're so obvious," Ethan overheard one colleague remark. He winced, anger surging within him. What was so embarrassing about pursuing happiness? Why should every little connection be subject to scrutiny? When Clara found him later during lunch, he didn't hold back. "I'm hearing people talk about us and it's frustrating," he admitted, running a hand through his hair. She sighed, a wave of discomfort washing over her features. "I felt it too." "It's like we're under a microscope," she said softly. "Do you want to scale back? I don't want you to feel uncomfortable," he asked, concern creeping into his voice. "No, I don't want to hide," Clara said, determination flashing in her eyes. "Together," Ethan replied resolutely, "we'll navigate whatever comes our way." Days turned into tense months as they tried to balance their professional lives with their new relationship. Each meeting became a test of endurance, every casual touch transforming into a dance of subtlety. Their happiness thrived quietly, but the external pressures loomed gossip like a dark cloud hanging overhead. Then came the annual corporate retreat, a night designed to celebrate the company's achievements. The air was thick with excitement, yet an undercurrent of anxiety coursed through Ethan. He could feel the weight of scrutiny upon them as team members gathered in a lavish hall, laughter bubbling around like champagne. When Clara arrived, looking stunning as always, he felt a momentary spark of reassurance. She asked, her voice vibrant. "As ready as I'll ever be," he replied, attempting a playful grin, though apprehension skittered under the surface. Throughout the evening they mingled among their colleagues, laughter lining the edges of uncomfortable moments. The more they connected, however, the more Ethan felt the watchful eyes upon them, whispering behind their backs. Then it happened. Clara was laughing at an inside joke when he overheard a comment with sharp edges. Can you believe them? Ethan's heart clenched. This was more than gossip, it felt like a threat to the bond they were trying to cultivate. "Clara," he said, steeling himself, "I can't let this get to me." As they stood back, she looked at him, concern pooling in her gaze. "Let's show them," Ethan urged, the fire of determination igniting once more. "We're not going to let anyone dictate our happiness. We deserve this chance to be together." Gradually, courage bloomed within her. You're right, Clara agreed, a spark lighting her eyes. With renewed zeal, they stepped into the noise of the party, laughter erupting from their lips as they danced. They swayed to the music, melting into each other as if the rest of the world fell away. But when they returned to the crowd, despite their moments of confidence, lingering doubts surfaced. The weight of judgment still felt heavy. Then came the moment of reckoning, a shifting tide that propelled their reality into a storm. Clara and Ethan found themselves in the break room the next day, staring at each other. "Ethan, we need to address this," Clara said firmly, her voice trembling with urgency. "It's affecting our work." He felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He asked, conflict swirling in his mind. "No," she said, shaking her head. Disappointment shot through him. "I don't want to lose what we built," he said, sorrow spilling from his heart. "I don't want to lose it either," she replied, her eyes shimmering with resolve. "But I need to protect my career." Realization dawned on him, an unavoidable truth lay before them. "Then let's address it openly." As the weight of that declaration settled, Clara's gaze softened. "Okay, together," he affirmed. With trepidation mixed with determination, they crafted an email that would address the office's rumors head-on. In it, they laid out their feelings, honestly and openly, creating a space where vulnerability could breathe. When they hit send, it felt like letting go of a balloon into the sky. They felt exhilarated but terrified, knowing there was no turning back now. In the days that followed, the reactions trickled in. Coworkers were surprised, intrigued, and gradually more accepting. They exchanged newfound respect, understanding the authenticity behind the announcement, and just like that, their connection transformed. They didn't just survive, they flourished. Clara and Ethan opened up new conversations, laughter mingled with vulnerability, and the shadows lifted. Their bond, once hidden behind veils of uncertainty, became a source of inspiration within the office, a testament to love conquering fear. As they walked hand in hand, they found themselves in the embrace of acceptance, the scrutiny that once felt threatening now shimmering in the background. As the weeks morphed into months, they danced their way into new beginnings, hand in hand, side by side. They laughed, they worked together, and in the process, they built not just a relationship, but a life, a sanctuary filled with connection, honesty, and so much laughter. The coffee machine, once a symbol of discontent, sat proudly in the corner, alive and thriving. In the heart of their shared moments, it became a vessel of warmth representing not just caffeine, but the energy of a love that danced and twirled through the crowded halls of office life. Ethan and Clara had learned that taking risks was part of the human experience, and together they would navigate whatever lay ahead. Their love story, birthed from the hum of a coffee machine, had become a shared journey, echoing through the very heart of the place they once thought would hold them back. They walked into the future, unafraid, deeply connected, ready to write the next chapter of their beautiful story. The coffee machine sputtered like a dying animal, abandoned in the corner of the break room. For weeks, office morale had tanked, held hostage by the absence of freshly brewed coffee. Ethan approached the machine like a hero, preparing for battle. His coworkers whispered about it in hushed tones, the longing for caffeine tinged with humor, yet underlined by a desperate need. Today, he was determined to bring the old warrior back to life. The fluorescent lights above hummed softly, casting a dull glow on the machine's fading exterior. With a breath of resolve, Ethan dug into the depths of his toolkit, his fingers flicking over the familiar tools like an experienced pianist warming up. He removed the back cover, revealing tangled wires and water stains that told stories of countless cups brewed in happier times. Each twist of the screwdriver felt significant, as if he were not just fixing a machine, but reigniting that spark of connection among his coworkers. After a couple of tense moments, the machine finally exhaled a long-awaited gurgle. Ethan stepped back, watching the magic unfold. Just then, Clara entered, her energy radiating into the room like sunlight bursting through clouds. Her long hair swayed as she approached, eyes lighting up at the sight of the brewing coffee. She asked, incredulous. Ethan replied, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. Clara exclaimed, pouring herself a cup. The steam curled into the air, mixing with the sweet aroma that filled the room. She took a sip, her face lighting up. "This is amazing," Ethan grinned. As they chatted, there was an easy vibe, a comfortable rhythm that warmed the air around them. Clara was not just the office project manager. She was a whirlwind of creativity with a laughter that made even the dullest meetings feel exciting. But today there was something new in her eyes, an intensity he hadn't noticed before. Clara ventured, a hint of nervousness creeping into her tone. "Sure," he asked, the thrill of curiosity bubbling up inside him. She suggested, glancing away. "Sounds good," he said, a wave of anticipation washing over him. As she walked away, Ethan couldn't shake the weight of her words. What could be so important? The hours trickled by like molasses, filled with meetings and tasks that felt painfully dull compared to the excitement of what lay ahead. He stole glances at Clara, watching her move through the office, her laughter ringing like a bell amid the clatter of keyboards and phones. Finally, the clock struck 6. Ethan stood up, feeling equal parts excitement and panic. What could she want to discuss? Was it just work or something more personal? 1,000 scenarios danced through his mind as he walked to the conference room. When he entered, Clara was already seated, hands clasped on the table, anxiety flashing in her eyes. "Thanks for coming," she said, attempting a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Of course, I'm glad we could meet," Ethan replied, settling across from her. The air felt electrified, each moment heavy with unspoken words. "So I know we wanted to brainstorm some project ideas," Clara began, her voice slightly shaky. Ethan's heart raced. "Yes," she said, her cheeks flushing. Time seemed to warp as Ethan absorbed her words. He had felt it too, but hearing her say it out loud made everything feel surreal. "I feel the same way," he responded, the honesty spilling from him like a dam breaking. A look of relief washed over Clara's face, and for a brief moment the tension lifted. She asked, her eyes brightening. "Yeah, it's been hard to ignore. You make this place a lot better," he said, the warmth of his admiration spilling out like an open invitation. Clara leaned in, her voice lowering. "But you know how office relationships can become complicated." Ethan nodded, understanding her caution. "I get it, but I'm willing to explore this." Her smile grew, its brilliance flooding the room. "Okay then." They transitioned back to project discussions, but the dynamics had shifted dramatically. Ideas flowed more freely, laughter echoed through the air, weaving connections stronger than before. Yet an undercurrent of anxiety lingered, an awareness of the world beyond those four walls. As the days turned into weeks, their relationship flourished in secret, sunlit corners of the office, quick smiles during meetings, stolen glances across the room, and laughter shared during lunch breaks. But outside their little bubble, whispers began to circulate, creeping into their sanctuary like intruders. One afternoon, while Ethan was working at his desk, he overheard two coworkers chatting nearby. "Did you see Clara and Ethan? So obvious, it's kind of embarrassing," one said, laughter tinged with mockery. Ethan felt a burning indignation rise within him. How could they belittle something that felt so beautiful? It was more than just office crushes, it was a genuine connection. That evening, when Clara found him in the break room, he didn't hold back. "I overheard some comments today. They think it's funny," he admitted, frustration mixing with hurt. Clara's expression shifted, worry filling her eyes. "I've sensed it too, it's uncomfortable." His heart dropped. "I don't want to hide who we are, but I understand if you feel anxious," he said, concern deepening. Clara replied, determination sneaking into her voice. "I don't want to hide, but how do we manage it?" Ethan took a step closer, his resolve firming. "Then let's own it." A flicker of hope ignited in Clara's eyes. "You're right, we should be stronger than the whispers." "Absolutely," Ethan affirmed. They decided to confront the situation head-on. That very evening, they crafted a message to share with their colleagues, one that would move beyond rumors and speak to their authentic connection. When the email was sent, Ethan felt a mixture of triumph and trepidation. More than just words, it was a challenge against whatever stigma the office might place on them. In the subsequent days, reactions poured in. Some were supportive, while others were hesitant, yet all were curious. Conversations began to shift. They felt the tension of scrutiny taper into a genuine interest, a blossoming acceptance. On a Friday afternoon, after the chaos of emails and chatter settled, Clara found Ethan in the break room again. "That wasn't so bad," she said, the nervousness that once held her captive now replaced by a new vigor. "I'm proud of us," he said, feeling more grounded with every passing second. As time flowed on, their bond deepened. They shared lunch breaks filled with conversation, laughter, and comfortable silences. They pounded through project deadlines with a renewed sense of teamwork, enjoying their connection while navigating the minefield of office life. Then came the annual company retreat. It was meant to be an evening of celebration, yet Ethan felt the vibrations of anxiety bubbling beneath the glittering surface. Clara was excited, but he could sense the tension nagging at her. Ethan asked, offering his hand for reassurance. "I'm excited, but also a little nervous about how everyone will react," Clara admitted, her eyebrows knitting together. "Let's just be ourselves. We can handle whatever comes next," he assured her, squeezing her hand gently. When they arrived at the venue, the atmosphere was electric, filled with laughter, music, and well-meaning small talk. Yet a weight pressed upon Ethan as he caught sight of their coworkers glancing in their direction. Whispers echoed in the background, but this time it felt different. With every passing moment, the worry in Clara's eyes seemed to fade. As they danced and laughed, it felt like they were reclaiming their story, shedding layers of anxiety and stepping boldly into the light. They were a team, united, delighted by the world around them. As the night wrapped up, they gathered with colleagues, feeling the excitement shift into acceptance. Clara raised a glass to toast, smiling broadly. The room echoed. But just as the warmth enveloped them, as they reveled in newfound acceptance, Ethan overheard a harsh whisper. "Did you see them? It's so awkward," one colleague snickered. His heart sank. Clara asked, concern shadowing her face. "No, let's stand tall," Ethan replied, determination surging through him. As they continued to mingle, the atmosphere transformed. What once felt heavy now felt like a breath of fresh air. Curiosity replaced judgment. Genuine kindness washed away insecurity. Days traveled into weeks, with their relationship evolving through the laughter of shared moments amid lighthearted banter. They began to embrace their journey fully, pushing through the pressures and uncertainties with grace. But as Clara and Ethan continued to flourish, the greatest challenge loomed ahead. Word of their relationship reached upper management, causing ripples of concern. That day, Clara was called into a meeting. When she emerged, her expression was clouded, a lightning storm brewing in her eyes. "Ethan, we need to talk," she said, urgency sparking in her voice. He felt a tight knot form in his stomach. "They're worried about workplace dynamics and they want me to end things with you," she answered, her voice trembling. Ethan's heart raced. "What? I know," Clara replied, her eyes unwavering. "Then let's fight for this," Ethan urged, desperation creeping into his voice. "We can't just ignore what they say," she replied, a flicker of doubt crossing her features. "Together," he insisted. Her resolve flickered, but it sparked an ember of courage within her. "Okay, let's have an honest discussion with them." The next day, they found themselves sitting across from their manager. The room felt stifling, the stakes higher than ever. "We understand the concerns," Clara said, her voice steady. The words echoed like rippled across glass. They held the weight of their truth raw and unfiltered. Their manager shifted uncomfortably. "We value both of you, but we worry about workplace dynamics." Ethan cut in, his voice steady. "We're committed to maintaining professionalism. We want a solution that respects our connection without compromising our careers," Clara added, determination radiating from her. A long silence hung in the air before their manager nodded, recognizing their resolve. As the meeting drew to a close, Ethan and Clara walked out hand in hand, a wave of relief washing over them. They had faced their fears together and emerged into the light. In the weeks that followed, workplace dynamics shifted. Their colleagues began to accept them, not just as coworkers, but as a genuine couple. They learned to embrace their relationship while still building their careers. It wasn't just about fixing the coffee machine anymore. It had transformed into a metaphor for their journey, a testament to resilience, understanding, and love that blossomed like the richest brew. As they stood together in the break room, watching the coffee machine bubbling in the corner, Ethan turned to Clara, a smile lifting his cheeks. "Together," Clara replied, her eyes twinkling with warmth, and in that moment they understood the real essence of their connection. It was forged through trials, tempered by challenges, and shined brightly under the wings of acceptance. The coffee machine may have been fixed, but more importantly, they had built a stronger foundation, a love story that defied convention and flourished against the odds. Hand in hand, they stepped into the future, ready to embrace whatever came their way. The coffee machine sputtered ominously, the last vestiges of hope echoing with an empty whir. It had been days since anyone had tasted anything but the bitter sludge of instant coffee, and the dull despair cast over the office was thick enough to cut with a knife. Ethan stood in front of the mechanical beast, determination etched on his face. Today would be different. Today, he would bring it back to life. Armed with a toolbox and a couple of YouTube tutorials, he dove into the guts of the machine, wrestling with wires and circuits. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as he focused, the cacophony of office sounds fading into a dull murmur. With each twist of the screwdriver, he could almost hear the distant chatter of coworkers coming back together, coffee cups in hand, laughter spilling into the air. After what felt like an eternity, there was a satisfying click. He stepped back with bated breath, watching as the machine began gurgling, steam rising like a phoenix from the ashes. Relief washed over him, the sweet scent of brewing coffee enveloping the space like a promise of better days. He poured himself a cup, the hot liquid swirling with possibility. Just then, Clara entered the break room. She was a force of nature, bright and bubbly, with hair that danced as she moved. She asked, her eyes wide with excitement. Ethan grinned, the weight of the world lifting off his shoulders. "You bet it is." Her laughter was infectious as she poured herself a cup, taking a sip that transformed her expression. "This is incredible. What can I say? I have my talents," he joked, their shared laughter echoing in the small room. But as they exchanged pleasantries, something shifted in Clara's demeanor. "Actually, Ethan," she began, her voice dipping slightly, "I was hoping you and I could chat later." "Sure." His heart quickened at the thought, a meeting with Clara, that sounded serious and perhaps a bit exciting. "Just a meeting," she said, and in that moment she looked away, biting her lip with an anxious flicker. "Sounds good," he replied, though a swirl of questions churned in his mind. What could this be about? Hours crawled by. Each second felt like an eternity as Ethan navigated through the tedious tasks of the day, anticipation gnawing at him. He thought about Clara more than he ever had before, the way her laughter sparkled, the confidence she exuded, the kindness she showed even on the most stressful days. What was she going to say to him? When the clock struck 6, Ethan felt a mix of excitement and dread. A part of him wanted to learn whatever secrets lived behind her request, while another part felt terrified of what those secrets might reveal. He took a deep breath and set off toward the conference room. Clara was already there, sitting at the large table, her fingers nervously tapping against the polished surface. When she saw him, a reluctant smile tugged at her lips. "Hey, thanks for coming," she said, her tone laced with both eagerness and apprehension. "Of course." "I'm curious about what's on your mind," he replied, trying to match her energy. "Right, so," she paused, gathering her thoughts. "I really think we can do something great if we collaborate." "Okay," Ethan said, feeling the weight of her gaze. Clara looked down for a moment, taking a shaky breath. It's about us. His heart raced at her words. He hadn't expected this to come up, but the rush of emotions made sense. I feel it too, he confessed, his voice steady despite the butterflies. Relief washed over her features as if a weight had been lifted. Really, I thought it was just me. Ethan nodded, the truth settling between them like a palpable tension. I understand, but I'm willing to explore it. Her eyes sparkled with excitement, and for a moment the world outside faded. I'd like to see where this goes, but maybe we should keep it under wraps for now. Sure, that sounds fair, he agreed, already yearning to delve deeper into this newfound connection. As the conversation meandered back into professional territory, the atmosphere shifted. Ideas bounced off each other with newfound complexity, laughter punctuating otherwise serious discussions. But underneath their playful banter lay a current of excitement tinged with anxiety. Weeks passed, and their relationship blossomed amidst hushed laughter and fleeting touches. Yet the shadows of the office began to loom, whispers creeping like vines, threatening to suffocate what they had built. One fateful afternoon, Ethan overheard two colleagues discussing them. "Did you see those two? It's so obvious," one snickered. A wave of anger crushed him as he turned away, frustration boiling in his veins. Why was it so easy for others to ridicule what felt so genuine? Later, when Clara approached him, her eyes downcast, he knew a confrontation was brewing. "Ethan, we need to talk," she said, her voice trembling as she bit down on her lip. He asked, sensing the tension in the air. "I can feel them watching us, the whispers. It's making me anxious," she admitted, her gaze flickering around as if searching for an escape. He asked, hurt creeping into his voice. The prospect felt like a gut punch, but if it made her uncomfortable. "No, definitely not," she responded quickly, her eyes widening. "But I want us to be careful. This could ruin everything I've worked hard for my position." His heart sank. "I get it." Her expression softened as she studied his face, searching for a sign. Ethan reached for her hand, squeezing gently. "Let's not let fear dictate us. We need to be open." Though apprehensive, Clara nodded slowly, determination flickering. "Okay, together," he affirmed, feeling a spark of hope. The next day they drafted an email to their team, a bold declaration of their relationship. When they hit send, Ethan felt a rush of exhilaration mingled with nerves. This was more than just a note, it was a promise of authenticity, a pledge to be true to themselves no matter the cost. Reactions flooded in over the next few days. Some were supportive, others puzzled, but most were surprisingly understanding. Conversations shifted, moving from whispers behind closed doors to open interest. It felt like a new page turning, allowing their relationship to blossom in the light. But just as they thought they found their stride, the company's annual retreat loomed, a time to celebrate, but also a potential minefield. On the way to the venue, Clara's excitement mixed with anxiety again, shadows creeping back into her thoughts. Ethan asked, offering his hand for reassurance. "Ready as I'll ever be," she said, though her voice wavered. The event buzzed with energy, laughter and chatter enveloped them, making the tension feel palatable. But as they danced and mingled, Ethan felt the eyes on them. Each laugh felt like it was accompanied by a pointed gaze, a reminder of the scrutiny still lingering in the backdrop. Then came the moment that shifted everything. In the midst of a laugh, Ethan heard a sharp whisper. "Can you believe those two?" The words sliced through the air like a dagger. He looked at Clara, her joyful demeanor faltering. She asked, concern flooding her features. "No, we're not giving in," Ethan snapped, frustration boiling over. As they moved from the dance floor to the crowd, Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline. They deserved to celebrate their connection, to revel in the joy they'd built, even if it meant facing the muttered judgments. Clara's hand tightened around his, and suddenly they were on the front lines of their own story. Days rolled into weeks, their relationship bouncing between exhilaration and tension, yet they had weathered the storms together. They were building something beautiful set against the intricate tapestry of life and relationships at work. But then, just as they felt secure, the unexpected happened. A colleague from HR requested a meeting with Clara, and when she came out, her face was pale, her brow furrowed with worry. "Ethan, we need to talk," she said, urgency lacing every word. "What?" he asked, panic rising in his chest. "They worry about workplace dynamics. They think we should end it for the sake of professionalism," she panted, her hands trembling slightly. A wave of anger surged through him as he realized the precariousness of their situation. "They can't dictate our lives. Maybe we should listen," Clara said hesitantly. But Ethan felt a fire ignite within him. "Or we could fight for this. We can't let them take away what we've built." She looked conflicted, caught between her job and her feelings for him. But the urgency electrified the air as he reached for her hands. "We face this together, all of it." Tears welled in Clara's eyes, and for a moment she hesitated, uncertainty hanging between them like a tightrope at the edge of a cliff. Would they leap forward or fall back into the shadows? As the gravity of the situation weighed heavily on their shoulders, the room began to spin. Their choices lay before them like forks in the road, and with every ounce of courage they had, Ethan and Clara prepared for the battle ahead. Would they succumb to fear or seize their chance to shape their future? In that moment, everything hung in the balance, and the next step could define not just their relationship, but their very lives. The air was thick with uncertainty, and the stakes had never been higher.